Well, I'm super excited to have Alejo. I told you I'm gonna destroy it on the Passion Band and Heart Show, aka Alejandro. See, I
Uh,
told you it was easier with me. Oh man, super excited to have you on the podcast. Amazing with the sketch notes, and he's also a coach for creatives. Welcome, brother.
Thank you so much, Daryl. It's a pleasure. I'm glad that we were able to connect. And yeah, just looking forward to just chat with you and get to share something that's valuable for the people that are listening.
Sweet. So that was your second time at Creative South, or your first?
That was my first time. Yeah. I've heard about it like years ago, and like every year I kind of missed it. Like I realized it happened after the fact. I was like,
Mm,
you know? And last year, a good friend of mine attended, and I was looking at Instagram. I was like, oh no, I couldn't attend this time. But next year, we're on it. And I like said it done. Like I was just like patiently waiting for the thing to just, pop up on
yeah, yeah,
Instagram and be like,
yeah,
okay, these guys are already promoting this thing. So as soon as I could, I think it was December, I bought my ticket and I was like, already message him, hey, do you already buy your ticket? I already booked my Airbnb. Like, let's go, let's go. So
All right.
yeah, it was a lot of
So
fun.
first of all, Alejo is
Alejo.
Alejo.
Yeah,
Alejo.
Alejo.
Promise you, I got
Alejo.
it now.
Yes,
Alejo
you got it.
is an amazing artist. All right,
Thank
and
you.
I don't care if we're talking about Ink Wars. I don't care if it wasn't. I don't know if it wasn't because it wasn't on the theme or whatever the case may be. Like it was. It was you and Jason Craig. Like your drawing, the time it took for you to get that bad boy done, like it was insane. Are you used to drawing to that scale?
Yeah, actually, I am because
Okay.
the sketch note thing that I do, like that, what we call sketch notes is just basically drawings with notes that we take in small scale, like
Mm-hmm.
a sketchbook or stuff like that. But I got started with that and trained as what it's called a graphic recording, which is like 40 by 60 boards, sometimes 4 by
Yeah, that's
8
right. I forgot
boards.
about that.
Yeah, yeah. So I love big scale, and when I do those things, I have a marker and go. I have no
Mm-hmm.
time to do pre sketches or anything like that. So it's accelerating. I love it. And I guess it kind of showed. And I appreciate that you say that. I think the rest of the people did a great job. I was super excited about, just being
Bro, you
surrounded by
killed
other
it.
very talented people because that energizes me, and I think I got definitely that was one of the things that actually like propelled me to do that. I was being surrounded by other people who are doing amazing things keeps me on my toes, and yeah, so I enjoy it. It was so much fun.
So, do you know Emily?
Emily.
I think it's is it Mills now? I think her
Yeah,
last
yeah,
name
yeah,
changed. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, totally.
Okay. Cause
Yeah,
she was like the person that I knew about. Like to me, she was the person that kind of put sketch notes in my like view. She's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah. I think it was from her or from Mike Rohde that I knew about Creative South
Okay. Yeah, because
originally.
she's
That
been to
like,
Creative South a few
yeah,
times.
it came like on my radar at some
Mm-hmm.
point. I was like, oh, that's cool. There's a conference in Georgia that I could attend. But you know just life happened, and
Yeah.
anyway, the timing is when the timing is supposed to be, and I was there at the time that I was supposed to be, and I think I enjoy it, so I cannot regret not being before, even though I would have liked to. But
Right.
the experience was totally worth the wait, I feel.
That's a great attitude. All right, so let's jump
Yeah,
right into it. How
yeah,
did your
let's do
creative
it.
journey start?
Ooh, professionally, because I can go with when I was a kid, I used to draw, but I feel like professionally, since I'm talking with probably a bunch of designers, people who are doing this and trying to make a living with it. It started kind of bumpy because I was scared of becoming a starving artist. I come from Costa Rica, which is a small country in Central America, and I come from a family that has a lot of artists in them, and they're awesome. But I also saw how hard it was for them because the market is so small, and I was just, I chickened out. So when I was about to start college, I actually my first career was biology. Because I'm a curious person. I just like, I had a very good teacher too that got me pumped. So I wanted to become a biologist, and then after failing calculus and chemistry twice and all that, I was like, okay, I think this is not the way.
That will do
Um,
it.
yeah, and I guess it's okay to fail, but if you're like, yeah, I don't think I'm gonna enjoy this, it's like I'm going against my nature. So at that point, my mom, through some friend, found out about somebody who did like career advising, and this person showed me all the pamphlets of all the careers of all the universities in Costa Rica and told me, go and check out the ones that you're more excited about. And I ended up choosing from all of those hundreds of things graphic design, because it was the closest that I could get to art without being artsy, like everybody needs a logo or like design, stuff like that. So it was more commercial. And I was like, okay, I have good chances in this. So I studied graphic design in my undergrad, and then I graduated, and then I worked in graphic design, and I didn't really liked it that much. Like it didn't click. Like I understood stuff, but it wasn't like clicking to me, because what I've always loved is to draw. And I didn't even know there was a career as illustration. Like in Costa Rica, there was not a career of illustration. Most people who wanted to do something with drawing would go to animation, and I wasn't so keen about that. And eventually I was just thinking about like, what should I do with my life, like I don't know. I want to keep growing. I want to do something more than graphic design, but I don't know which direction I want to go. And at that point, it was one of those kind of like, like looking back is okay, stars align, things happen at the right time. And my mom she's an accountant, and she has a lot of books, and she had left a book on the table one day just randomly that got my attention. It was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I started reading it, and I found out about this thing called investing. And I was like, oh, so you can do something else with money besides spending it and saving it. So I was curious about it. And as part of an exercise, I think it's part of the book, I made a list of all the people that I knew, or that my parents knew, that I knew were successful, like in business in general, so that I could interview them. And the first person that I interviewed took me seriously. Like he didn't have to, like, because I was just like, so what's investing? That was my question. Like, how do I do this? And he started, okay, let's talk about, you as a professional. And then he taught me about the best investment, and the first investment you should do is in yourself, because you are the one who is producing the money first. So he coached me for, a few years. I think it was like 2 years. And through that relationship, we met every week, other week. um, we talked about my career. What did I wanted to do? What did I want to accomplish? If I wanted to get married at some point, like, did I want to get married empty handed, or did I want to bring to the table some economic, like something, already, like not just come empty handed just with my love, So he really like helped me a lot. And in that process, I started researching about doing a master's degree somewhere outside Costa Rica, because I knew I needed to get out of the country to learn new perspectives and stuff like that. So long story short, I was afraid of becoming an artist. I took the long route, decided to go tangentially to the route of art, ended up getting a coach that changed completely my approach
Mm.
to life, and to business, to money, to relationships. And after that, I applied for a master's degree that I came to the United States to do. And there I met my wife, so I stayed. Like
Yeah.
I ended up staying here and just working as an illustrator, and eventually as a graphic recorder, and now just like doing all those stuff, like getting paid to draw basically, which is fantastic. And now I'm doing this thing of coaching, because coaching changed my life. So I was fortunate enough that I found somebody who took me seriously and who helped me out, who was patient with me. And I've seen so many people along my way, in college stuff, just kind of like drop like flies, because they were burnout, because they didn't have that mentorship, that coaching. And so that's what inspired me to start doing this for other people. So
Awesome.
that's kind of like in a big nutshell, in a coconut, you know, my my creative journey.
Okay, that's interesting. So from I just want to let you know, like, so I wasn't born in the U.S. either.
Hmm.
I was actually
Where were you
born in
born?
I was actually born in Jamaica.
Oh, cool.
Uh, so I do kind of understand like the perspective of like needing to leave the country
Mm,
for this, especially if it was more than 10 years ago. For
mm,
me, it was this opportunity. It's not so much now because I feel like the internet has kind of evened the playing
mhm.
field a little bit, but definitely for certain avenues, legitimacy. I do feel
Yeah,
like the state still provides that for certain avenues, but I do
yeah,
believe the internet kind of level the playing field.
yeah. I totally agree with you. I think it's also like a matter, and I was actually talking with somebody today about this, like a matter of like personality. I am a very social person, and I thrive like eating or like feeding up from the energy of people around me. So
Right.
I knew I had to be in a place where there were creative people pushing their boundaries really hard.
Mm,
Because otherwise, if I'm just me, my computer alone somewhere else, I don't feel that vibe, and it's just harder for me. And it's kind of like a self awareness sort of thing, because I knew that, then I also knew that I had to get out of Costa Rica, and I had to get into an environment that was completely different from where I was, so that I could get the best of that.
cool. So, what's some of the
Yeah.
ways you generate revenue right now?
Yeah. Well, basically those two things. I get paid to draw, being that illustration, doing graphic recording. Graphic recording is like my bread and butter. I work with this company, the Sketch Effect, and I'm busy. Like tomorrow, I'm hopping on a plane to go to an event in Miami. Last week, I was in Texas, and so on and so forth. So that is like the biggest thing that I do, and then just illustration stuff from time to time. My wife and I, we have a creative studio. I met her in art school. She's an illustrator too, so sometimes we work together in some projects. Sometimes she's like working on some projects herself, but it's kind of like part of the same business. And so yeah, essentially the first one is just I get paid to draw, and the other one is people pay me to coach them, essentially, just to have somebody who keeps them accountable, gives them new perspective. Those are the ones that I have so far. I know I kind of started this talking about like investing and all that stuff. It has taken me a minute to kind of get there. Eventually, I would love to have not only I would love, like I'm planning and I'm like researching and learning more about, like, buying businesses and stuff like that, so I can have other sources of revenue that are not my time. But it's also something that I feel like kind of lands down once you have a family and a kid. It's like, okay, you cannot be trading your time for money your whole life. Like, that's not gonna work. So yeah, but so far, like right now, doing pretty well, and very excited that I still have energy, and like the kind of work, again, like keeps me on my toes. Like, it's exciting, it's new. I don't get bored like doing the same thing over and over again. It's very stimulating. So, and it pays really well. So yeah, that's the
Yeah, I mean,
main thing that I do.
I I've always kind of noticed like the sketch notes from afar. I mean, I do some version of that. I'm nothing like you guys. It takes me forever, and when the person is talking, probably much better at remembering what they said instead of trying to do it fast because it probably takes me forever to do it. And calligraphy is not. I would not recommend trying to do calligraphy and sketch
Oh
notes.
yeah,
It takes
yeah,
forever.
yeah.
It
It takes too
takes
much time.
yeah.
Calligraphy is like if you have just one word that you want to highlight, and that's it.
100%.
Yeah, yeah.
But I guess my memory does help me, so I'll remember what they said for the most part. But it's still like I'm still amazed when I see like when I saw your work for what you did for the speakers at Creative South. I was just like, that's just insane to me.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
know, like just the act of taking notes on paper is way better than just listening, 'cause
100%.
you're engaging yourself, translating things, synthesizing, and, taking those decisions just makes you engage more with the content. So, even though I do sketch notes professionally and people are like, "Oh my gosh, that is so great." It's like I told some people at Creative Sound, like, I do this professionally, but that doesn't mean that this is the standard that you have to do. if you're not doing this professionally, just do it whatever you want. The first sketch notes that I have memory of, I didn't even know about sketch notes as a thing. I just, I was the kind of person that, because I cannot just stare at somebody for an hour, 2 hours in a class, I will start doodling. I will start like drawing people around me. I will, like, the teacher will say something funny. I will just draw it. It was just like my way for to pay attention, to stay engaged. People think that the kids that are drawing are not engaged. And actually, because I knew that it was kind of like a stigma, I forced myself to pay more attention so that if I was asked, I could respond immediately. So I was listening, even though I was drawing something related to what I was listening. And that's how it started. Like my first sketch notes were nothing like like what it like, they were pretty terrible, but I didn't care because it was fun. It was something that I did to help me, cope with, I'm not necessarily like ADHD, but I do have some sort of like, I cannot pay attention for too long. I get the jitters. I need to move. I need to step up or something like that. So that
All
helps
right.
me channel my
So
energy. So
so what's like your top three sketch notes tips?
top three sketchnote tips. Well, we always said that sketchnotes, it's all about listening. That is the main skill that you need to develop to do effective sketchnotes. And it's not just like listening, like, I'm listening. It's just like distilling the information. And how I like to say, like, how I like to teach it is you're having a conversation with the speaker. Like when you're reading a book, you're asking yourself questions about, like, is this what it is? Or like, what does this mean? Or how can I fit this into my personal journey? Like I'm doing the same. I'm having a conversation with the speakers. I'm just like, what does this mean? Or sometimes I'm just like listening to something and it's like, a full story. And I'm like, okay, where is this going? Where is this going? Where is this going? Oh, okay. I think this is going here. And when I answer that question, I write it down. So the first skill of sketch notes is just basically active listening, just focusing, paying attention. I think the second one, for somebody who maybe is just kind of starting or something like that, like they're not, they're just testing it out. They just want to see what is it about. I feel like the second one is to just make it fun, because and this mean like draw probably more than you actually write,
Mm,
because the tendency for people is to write everything down. And again, this is an active listening thing. If you develop that more, you won't write everything. You will write just the important things. But if you have this attitude of also like, hey, this should be fun. I want to draw. I'm doing this because I want to draw. Then just like draw more. I think it can help you pass through that boundary of I'm just note taking and adding drawings. So it's like, I know I'm doing those two things, and the drawing is the fun part. So I'm just gonna try to do these things. And I guess the third one should be like an advice in general is just find what I call your hall of fame and learn from them. So I have a few people that I'm like, these guys are amazing,
hmm.
and I study what they do.
Gotcha.
And like, the term like steal like an artist. It's not like I'm
Hmm.
stealing their style, but I'm learning from the style. I try to do their style so that I can learn from it, because if their style is different from mine, then I'm gonna learn something. So
Right.
um, it's just that sort of like, okay, I don't have to be original at the beginning. I just have to learn from the people who are doing things that inspire me, so that I can eventually end up doing things that are like that. So I'm a big believer of gathering your hall of fame, the people that you admire, and study really what they do and try to emulate it. I think that's how you learn.
That's cool. That's cool. All right. So, what would you say was the biggest fear you had to overcome?
There's been many. The road is
I feel
is
that.
filled with potholes, yes, but I feel initially the biggest fear that I had in my career was, as I said, I didn't want to be a starving artist, so I run away from art because I was afraid it was not gonna work out. I was afraid that art was not the venue, and I think that all came from a standpoint of like, it was not the fault of art, because I knew that if I do art, I could do it well. Like inside myself, I believed that it was just something that I loved and that I would be good at. But I, I knew nothing about business. So, of
Mm.
course, if you don't know anything about business, at the end of the day, you're a business, and I think that is the thing that I was more afraid of. Like, I didn't know anything about business, and I was afraid that if I learned about business, then I would become a business person and not an artist. Like, if that was a bad thing, you
Right.
know. So I think that was my first fear. The second fear, I feel, it has always been this thing of, like, feeling like I'm not doing enough. I have this fear that is deep ingrained in me. I feel this word potential, like the stuff that you could do.
Mm-hmm.
I have always felt that I could give more than I'm actually giving, and sometimes I feel like I'm not giving enough. And it's just that, so let me put you a very weird example. I was in singing classes for a long time, like for probably 5 or 6 years, with a private teacher. I love singing. And when I came to the US, I developed a lot of allergies, and my voice has been affected because of that. So I cannot hit the notes that I used to. And sometimes I hear somebody singing, and I know deep inside my vocal cords have the capacity to reach that, but something is like covering them and not
Mm-hmm.
letting them sing those notes. And it's
Mm-hmm.
so frustrating. It's like, I know I could do it. Like, I could feel how like the amount of pressure that I should need, how much should I open my mouth, like all these things. I know how it would work physically, but I can't. And that is like one of the biggest fears, like with money. Like, I've learned all these things about investing, about, how to negotiate and all that. And I don't want to be the person that at 65 didn't do it knowing that he could have.
Right.
So it's a weird kind of fear, and I live with it, because it pushes me to keep going. Not, I have to be careful not to just overdo myself and burn out, like go to an extreme, because I can be very intense, at times. But I think it is a good fear, just like a, you know,
Right.
well, for those who didn't see me, I'm just like slapping my face a little bit, like wake up sort of thing, like
Mm-hmm.
keeping me on my toes. So yeah, I think those
Okay.
are basically my two fears. Yeah,
That's cool. That's cool. All right. So let's jump into some fun questions. What's that thing you can't live without that's not your phone?
two things,
Sure.
three
Let's
things.
go it. Let's do
Um,
it.
yeah, the first one, it has to be my family. My wife and
Mm.
my son. They are the most important thing in my life. And yeah, the hardest part about having a job that makes me travel a lot is just sometimes, not seeing them for 3 days or something like that. It's like I miss them a lot because it's a lot
Mm.
of fun to be around them. So that's the one thing. The second thing, people are gonna roll their eyes, but I definitely cannot live without a pencil and a paper. I can't live complete, like, without a phone or without a computer, stuff like that. I've done it. I've spent times, and actually most of my life, like, before, because I was born in the 80s, and there were no computers back then, and I
Right.
was always with a pen and paper. So I just like to make marks in things.
That makes
So
sense.
yeah, yeah. And then the third one is rice.
I love
Very
it.
close with water. Like, those are two things that I cannot live without. Like, yeah.
Ah, I love that one. That's probably my favorite one. That yeah. It's family and rice.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And
You're
I can
big
use my
like
pencils as chopsticks to eat it. I don't care. Yeah.
that makes sense. Actually, that actually
Yeah.
does make sense. I love that. That's cool. That's cool. All right, so
Yeah.
book. You already said one book. Which one is one of my favorite books?
Mm.
I think if you really want to kind of think about money and just the whole idea of mindset,
Hmm.
Rich Dad Poor Dad
Yeah.
is one of the best books for that. That book will completely change if you
I
grew,
love.
especially if you grew up in a family that never talked about anything like that
Hmm.
or anything
Yeah.
like that. It will completely change your perspective.
I love that book because it's a story.
Hmm.
And there's a lot of books out there that are fantastic, and they're like theory sprinkled with different stories. But this one is an overarching story that is very relatable. and
Mm-hmm.
you don't see that very often. Like I would love to write a book like that at some point,
Mm-hmm.
maybe not about finances, but but creativity or stuff like that. Because yeah, it's just very relatable, definitely. It wouldn't come out as my like top 10 of recommended books just because I read it so long ago. I think I've read
Mm-hmm.
other books that have been like
But I do think
just more
initially,
pivotal.
if you've never embarked on
Yeah.
anything new,
Hmm.
think for a mindset shift, it's a good
Yeah.
book to start out with.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally agree. Totally agree. So you were asking like
Yeah,
recommended
your book
books.
recommendations.
Yeah.
Sure.
Atomic Habits,
Mm,
mind blowing. I still have it here. Very, very good book. I think it just changed completely my approach to discipline, and yeah, like understanding that it's not like you have to be a disciplined person, but if you can change something about your environment, that discipline just comes. It's like, you know,
100%. That is
I,
so true.
yeah, I like that a lot. Gosh, I read a lot and I feel like, but I read a lot of like audiobooks. I cannot pinpoint one in particular, but I would say I've read like four books of Malcolm Gladwell, and I would
Yeah.
recommend any book by Malcolm Gladwell to anybody
Okay.
who is just curious about how things connect in the fabric of a society in life. Is just, I think probably, let's see, Tipping Point is really good.
Okay.
I enjoy that one. What other book? This is not, well, are we talking about self development stuff
It
or
doesn't
just
matter. And
okay?
honestly, it's your choice
Okay,
actually.
so I love storytelling, and there's a series of books that has been going on from like a few years, and it's a like murder mysteries. It's
Hmm.
called the Thursday Murder Club. I forgot the name of the author, but they're hilarious. It's about a group of old people who live like in a in an old people's home thingy. Forgot the name of it, but they just try to solve murder mysteries that the police haven't solved, but they're so witty and each of the characters is so distinct that
Mm,
it just makes you love them. It's also like funny and sad because they're old people, so there's stuff that happens that is really hard. And I just feel like it's very human, and they're actually making a movie out of it, and I can't wait to see it. But I would definitely recommend the book, even better the audiobook because it's hilarious to hear, the voice actor doing the different personalities and accents and all that. Is just so much fun.
sweet.
And yeah, I think those are kind of like three that come closest to mind. I have a bunch of
Yeah,
books there,
I see
but
that.
yeah. Oh, then yeah, there it is, the tipping point.
Hmm.
Yeah. Other favorite
Sweet.
book is The Wind and the Willows too. It's like
Okay.
children's book.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I cried
Okay.
with that book. It's just the tenderness of the characters again. I'm
Mm,
drawn to stories that talk to your heart,
yep.
that show you a level of humanity, even if it's through animals,
Hmm.
that it just feels like this is how things should be. This is how we should treat each other. It's just like, yeah, it tears me up. And I love it.
And since you kind of like books that kind of have a message, but they're telling a story, have you read a book called The Noticer?
No, I haven't. I'm gonna write it down.
You should check that one out. I'm the same way. I love even if it's like a self help book, if it's a story and they have like good messaging in regards to a topic in the story, I love those type of
Mhm.
books. So that kind of
Yeah,
goes to what you were talking about. So it's called The Noticer, and all his books are like that. I can't remember the author, but you'll see it's kind of like a greenish, and it says The Noticer on it.
cool. I'll check it out.
All right. What's the first hour of your day like?
The first hour of my day,
Mm-hmm.
it changes. There are three things that remain fairly consistent. One of them is just that is consistent every time. It's just I prep stuff for my son, like prep him breakfast and stuff for him to go to school. If I wake up before him, sometimes I just get in my computer and start working. Start like finding out the things that I need to do for the day. And start sometimes it's like writing, like I'm writing a lot of content for social media stuff, or just like going through my accounts and seeing how am I doing,
Mm-hmm.
economically and where do I need to move money and stuff like that. Sounds super
Sweet.
boring, but this point in my
Uh,
life, I feel like it just comes natural, And then I either commute because sometimes I go to an office in Atlanta, the office of Sketch Effect, and work there. And when I commute, I listen to podcasts or listen to an audiobook. And if not, if I just drop off my son to school, I come back and I take a walk. And because when I work from home, I actually move less. I take less breaks. Is something that I'm trying to work on. So I need to get
it's
some
hard, man.
steps in the morning because otherwise I know it's gonna be like 3 p.m., 4 p.m., and I've walked like 2,000 steps, and that's not good. so
Yeah.
so yeah, I try to get some steps in the morning, and that's basically it. I don't typically eat breakfast. I used to love it. Like, I mean, I love eating breakfast. I just now just wake up with this feeling of like I have to get things done, and I want to get things done, and I don't get hungry until like 11. So yeah, that's the first hour, and I wake up usually between 6:37 a.m. I would love to wake up earlier, but I'm also terrible at going to bed early, and it's not good to sleep 3 hours. Like for me, I just don't function. So yeah, that is kind of
All
like
right.
one of those battles.
All right. I think I'm about to debut a question on the podcast, and you're gonna be the
Okay,
first person.
all right, bring it
So
on.
this hit me today, and I kind of want to start. What just one? What's one habit that you've developed that you would recommend for anyone to develop?
I hesitate about saying one that I would recommend anyone to develop because I know I have different personality and different tastes than some people. I feel like in general for business, like you're an artist and you want to take your business seriously, an avid a habit that I've developed is, how do I say this without,
Nah, just go for it, man. Whoever it's for
yeah.
will take it.
So I'm always trying to learn. So every time that anything happens, I'm always asking, what did I learn from this?
Okay.
Every time I listen to something, it's like, what do I learn from this? And then I ask him, how can I apply this, to my life? How does this apply to my life? I am a junkie for learning. Like I just love learning, and but I don't love learning for the sake of learning because I know I can become a snob, like, or people could become a snob if they just have a lot of information. For me, information without application is useless. So I'm always searching for how can I apply this. And I think that is kind of the first kind of domino of why I feel like I've gotten to the place that I am, because every time that I learn something, I try to apply it immediately. And
Mm,
so I guess that's kind of like stacking
good thing.
habits. The first one is the question of, am I learning something? What am I learning from this? The second one is, okay, if I learn something, how can I apply it? And the third one is just applying it, like
I love
trying
that.
not to delay that application, because I've noticed, and my coach has told me, like, you need to even shorten the amount of time between your thinking and your action, because when you
Facts.
stay in the thinking too long, you don't take action, and it's
Yeah,
better
we
to take
talk
action.
ourselves out of things.
Yeah. So yeah, I guess that's the three for one.
Yeah, I love that.
um
That's a good one.
yeah.
That's a good way to kick it off. All right, so
Yeah.
what's next for Alejo? Alejo.
What's next?
Alejo.
What's next? So right now I'm in a sort of transition, because I was working full time with the Sketch Effect, and recently I just decided to jump off and work as a contractor with them and do my, like, pursue my coaching even more, like helping more people in that area. I think next for me is just accommodating to that. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
it's just weird right now, like, because my schedule is just all over the place. I know that I'm working less hours, which was one of the things that prompted me to make the jump so that I could stay a little bit more time with my family. But I'm also traveling, so I'm trying to find a balance of how much I need to travel and how much I need to stay home so that I can meet our financial goals. while at the same time being with my family. So for now, the question or the approach for me is just finding the balance between all that. And I think after that, what comes is just boosting a little bit more the part of me that is a teacher, that is a coach, because I've
Hmm.
been kind of doing it that from a platform, on Instagram, in which the name finishes with art. So people assume that it's
It's
my
gonna be
art
about
what's going to
art.
develop there, but I'm like, okay, I want to speak. I would love to speak at Creative South, for example. Like, it would be an honor for me, and it would be fantastic
Right.
experience. But I would love to just go to conferences, do workshops, like reach more people, be able to help a lot of folks. I know there's a lot of big figures there, but one thing that my coach once told me is like, yeah, there's a lot of people who are doing things, but there's only one you, and some people will only resonate with you. So you got to speak up. You got to share your stuff, because there's some people who need it. So
It's true.
I don't want to stay in a cabinet or under a box or something like that. I want to speak out, and I want to show up in those opportunities. So eventually that might mean, like, I have like two ideas of books, or like skeleton, not like a, yeah, like a skeleton of a book. Like, I've been writing it for like 2 years, and hasn't,
Nice.
been concluded, because it's still like, I'm not sure this is the timing. I'm not sure.
Hmm.
It's like, it's so solid. So I'm thinking about our ideas to, put out some other content out there that can help more people or reach out more people. But yeah, is that whole area of teacher, speaker, coach, that I'm pursuing, like in a 5 year kind of horizon. Like, it's probably going to happen faster, knowing myself, because I reach out, a lot, but it's, I think that's the next, maybe like bigger thing. And
Nice.
apart from that, eventually would be like, buying another business and just having this other stuff that has nothing to do with art, but that
Hmm.
financially is like a big platform to do other things and help my family have more, more freedom, more access, and more fun too. So yeah,
Dude, this has been amazing, man. This has been awesome. You've just been dropping so
thanks.
much information. Where can people go to find you and learn more about you?
Yes, I'm on Instagram. Instagram, I say that it's my neighborhood. I just opened, actually, in Creative South. I launched it, my new Instagram account, which is Alejo the Visual Coach. So Alejo the Visual Coach. And I say that because my coaching is visual. When I'm coaching people, I'm sharing my notes, and people can see on the screen. Or if
Hmm.
I'm like, with the person, like, I draw stuff, so that helps them see where they're at.
I
But
like
anyway,
that.
like, back to the question, yeah, Alejo the Visual Coach. I'm also an Alejo Porras Art. That's ALEJOPORRASART. And my website is alejodevisualcoach.com. I'm on LinkedIn too, but I'm just focusing on Instagram at this point. I have a TikTok account, but I'm just focusing on Instagram at this point. So if you are on TikTok and LinkedIn and want to connect there, message me on Instagram first, and then we can connect somewhere else. But otherwise, I'll invite you to my house, well, my Instagram house, I guess. I'll open the door so you can take a look and get comfortable and see if you like it. If you like the food that I give, if you
I
like
love that.
the hors d'oeuvres and all that stuff.
That's awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
awesome. Love what you're doing.
thanks,
Keep
man.
killing it, man. You
Thank you.
definitely gotta do a workshop at Creative Self. Gotta do it.
Yeah,
Figure
yeah,
out how to make that happen.
we love it. I mean, I'm reaching out to Mike this week. I didn't want to bother him right after Creative
No,
Side, because I
yeah,
can't imagine
that's
how
wise. Nah, he
how, like,
usually goes on like a trip after, like right after. I don't know if he did
yeah.
this year, but
Hmm.
because the next week would have been Easter, so I don't think he did.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So he probably went on a trip. It probably would have been either last week or this
Hmm.
week, one of these weeks. I know
Yeah.
usually he goes on a trip after Creative Stuff because it's just like he's on grind
Yeah.
for
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
7 months straight.
Oof. Yeah. Yeah. It's a big undertaking, and it's very admirable, because, and I mean, I know it's not easy, because I've been behind the what's it called, behind
The
the
scenes.
behind, yeah, in many events, like, just like looking. And I've helped. organizing events, but like very small scale, not to that point. And yeah,
It's not
I
easy,
can
man.
tell.
Events.
Yeah,
It's not
but
easy.
you gotta give it to him, the heart that he puts on it. It's just,
Yeah, he
you
loves
know,
it. He believes in
yeah,
all of us that
yeah,
comes. He just believes in the creative community. Love that
that's
dude.
awesome. Yeah,
Well, dude, so glad to have you come on, man. This has been awesome.
thank you. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity.